You scroll through your phone and see people laughing together at a party you weren't invited to. You put it down. The room feels quieter than it did before, and somewhere in your chest, something tightens. You don't have a word for it exactly, but your body knows exactly what it is. And that's where things get interesting, because that feeling, that hollow, aching pull in your chest when you feel cut off from other people, isn't weakness. It isn't something wrong with you. It is one of the oldest, most precisely engineered alarm systems in the entire history of life on Earth. And right now, in the modern world, it is going off almost constantly. For nearly everyone, you are not built to be this lonely. And the world you live in was not built for the kind of creature you actually are. Let's back up. Way back. Imagine you are standing on the African savanna about 2 million years ago. You are small. You are slow. You have no claws, no venom, no real armor. In a landscape filled with lions, hyenas, leopards, and a dozen other things that would happily eat you, you are laughably fragile. One wrong move alone, and you are dead. But you are not alone. You are part of a group, a tight, interconnected band of somewhere between 50 and 150 people who know your name, know your face, know your habits. They share food with you. They warn you when something is coming. They stay awake so you can sleep. They carry your children when you are too exhausted. They hold you when someone you love dies. This group is not a luxury. It is not a social preference. It is oxygen. It is the only reason your species survived long enough to become the most dominant organism on the planet. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar at the University of Oxford spent decades studying the relationship between primate brain size and social group complexity. What he found was striking. The size of the neocortex, the thinking, planning, socially aware part of the brain, scales almost perfectly with the average size of the social group that species lives in. Bigger social demands, bigger brain to manage them. And in humans, Dunbar calculated that the upper cognitive limit for meaningful relationships is about 150 people. That number keeps appearing across hunter-gatherer societies, ancient villages, military units, and early religious communities around the world. It became known as Dunbar's number, and it tells you something profound about what your brain was actually designed to do. Your brain is, at its core, a social management system. A machine built specifically to track relationships, remember faces, model other people's emotions, predict behavior, and maintain your standing inside a group. The vast majority of your cognitive power, the processing that happens beneath your awareness every single second, is devoted not to abstract logic or creative thought, but to other people. You are, at the most fundamental level, a social animal. Not metaphorically, biologically, structurally. Every part of your nervous system was shaped by millions of years of living, embedded in a group, dependent on that group for survival. So what happens when that group disappears? Neuroscientist John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago spent more than 2 decades studying exactly that question. What he found was that loneliness, real chronic loneliness, does not just feel bad. It changes your body at the cellular level. It elevates cortisol, the stress hormone, persistently and systemically. It disrupts sleep architecture. It increases inflammation throughout the body. It accelerates cellular aging. It raises blood pressure. It suppresses immune function. In one of his most striking findings, Cacioppo showed that chronic loneliness increases the risk of early death by roughly 26%, a number comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that land for a moment. Being lonely is, statistically, about as dangerous to your long-term health as being a heavy smoker. And here is why that makes perfect sense from an evolutionary standpoint. Your body has no idea you are in a studio apartment in a city of 8 million people. It has no category for that. What your body knows, the only thing it has ever known, is that being separated from your group means death. Being cast out, forgotten, isolated, in the environment your ancestors lived in for nearly 2 million years, that was a death sentence. Not a metaphor, a literal death sentence. So your nervous system evolved a response to social isolation that is functionally identical to the response it has to physical pain. Think about what pain does. Pain is not the problem. Pain is the alarm that makes you pay attention to the problem. It is urgent and unpleasant because it needs to be. It is designed to make you stop whatever you are doing and fix something before it kills you. Loneliness works the same way. The hollow feeling in your chest, the hypervigilance, the sense that something is wrong and off and missing. That is your nervous system screaming at you to go back. Get back to the group. Reconnect. Fix this. Because in the world your body still believes it is living in, the cost of staying isolated is your life. The problem is that the modern world has broken the alarm system. In the ancestral environment, loneliness was brief. You got separated. You felt terrible. You rejoined the group. The alarm turned off. Your body returned to baseline. The system worked. But in the modern world, the social structures that would normally turn off the alarm have been systematically dismantled over the last 100 years. And the alarm is not built to run indefinitely. Think about what has changed. A century ago, most people lived in the same community their entire lives, surrounded by extended family, embedded in religious or civic institutions that met weekly, living in neighborhoods where the same faces appeared every day, working in close physical proximity to the same people for decades. These were not incidental features of life. They were the social infrastructure your nervous system requires to feel safe. Then came urbanization. Then came the car, which dissolved walkable communities. Then came the television, which replaced gathering with passive consumption. Then came the suburb, which traded shared space for private property. Then came the smartphone, which put a portal to simulated social connection in your hand at all times, while quietly replacing the real thing. And through all of it, the average household size shrank. The average commute lengthened. The average friendship became less local, less frequent, and less physically present. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory declaring loneliness and social isolation a public health epidemic in America, not a trend. Not a concern, an epidemic. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy wrote that about half of American adults reported measurable levels of loneliness, not occasional loneliness, not a bad week, persistent, chronic loneliness that was affecting their physical health, their mental health, and their life expectancy. This is not a personal failure. This is an evolutionary mismatch. You are an ancient creature running ancient software in an environment that was designed with almost no consideration for what that software actually needs. Here is what makes it even stranger. The more connected the digital world has become, the lonelier people have reported feeling. This seems paradoxical until you understand what connection actually means to your nervous system. It is not the number of contacts in your phone. It is not the followers on your profile. It is not the messages received per day. Your nervous system is looking for something very specific: physical presence, eye contact, shared experience in real time, touch. The feeling of being known, not just seen, but actually understood by someone who has spent enough time with you to model who you really are. No algorithm can deliver that. No notification can substitute for it. And in fact, psychologist Jean Twenge at San Diego State University found in her research spanning decades of survey data that increased screen time, particularly on social media, correlates directly with increased rates of loneliness, depression, and anxiety, especially in adolescents. The more time you spend on platforms designed to simulate social connection, the more your nervous system registers a gap between what it is receiving and what it actually needs. You are feeding the hunger with something that looks like food but provides no nutrition, and your brain, being the sophisticated threat detection system it is, responds to that gap with exactly the kind of low-grade chronic stress response that Cacioppo documented. The alarm stays on. You stay in a mild but persistent state of vigilance. Your threat sensitivity increases. You begin to read neutral social cues as negative ones. You start to expect rejection where none is intended. This is not a personality flaw. This is what chronic loneliness does to the social brain. It recalibrates it toward threat. Cacioppo called this hypervigilance to social threat, and it creates a cruel feedback loop. The lonelier you become, the more you perceive social situations as threatening. The more you perceive them as threatening, the more you withdraw. The more you withdraw, the lonelier you become. The alarm does not turn off. It turns up. And it gets worse because your immune system is listening. Cacioppo and his colleagues discovered that loneliness alters the expression of genes involved in immune function. Specifically, it upregulates genes associated with inflammation and downregulates genes associated with antibody production. Your body, in a state of social isolation, essentially shifts resources away from fighting viruses and toward managing wounds, because in the ancestral environment, being isolated usually meant being at high risk of physical attack, so your body prepares for injury rather than infection. In the modern world, with no predators and no wounds to dress, that shift just leaves you more vulnerable to illness and faster cellular aging. For no protective benefit at all, you are paying an ancient biological tax for a threat that no longer exists, in a world that accidentally created the very conditions that trigger it. So what does your body actually need? Not more followers, not a better dating app, not a more stimulating social media feed. The research is remarkably consistent about what moves the needle on loneliness: physical co-presence, repeated unplanned contact with the same people over time, activities done alongside others, not for others, not at others, but alongside them. The experience of being witnessed in a context that is not performative. Researcher Nicholas Christakis at Yale, who studies social networks and health, found that happiness, health behaviors, even obesity spread through social networks the way infections do. The people around you, not just their words, but their physical presence, their habits, their emotional states, literally shape your biology. Your nervous system is designed to co-regulate with other nervous systems, to synchronize heart rate, breathing, stress hormones, even gut microbiome composition with the people you spend time near. You are not a self-contained unit. You are part of a network, and outside that network, something fundamental starts to break down. This is not poetry. This is physiology. Your ancestors spent their entire lives within walking distance of everyone they had ever known. They slept in physical contact with other people. They processed grief communally. They made decisions as a group. They ate every meal with someone else present. The idea of spending an entire day, let alone an entire year, without meaningful face-to-face contact with another human being would have been not just unusual, but incomprehensible. And now it is ordinary. Now it is Tuesday. Think about the last week of your life. How many of those hours were spent in genuine, present, unhurried contact with another human being? Not a phone call while doing something else, not a text exchange, not a meeting where you were both watching a screen. Real presence, real eye contact, real conversation that had nowhere else to be. If that number is smaller than you feel comfortable admitting, you are not uniquely broken. You are living in a structure that was not designed for the creature you are. A structure that rewards productivity and convenience and efficiency and measures almost nothing that your nervous system would recognize as actually important. The loneliness epidemic is not a mystery. It is the predictable outcome of building a world that optimizes for everything except the one thing 2 million years of evolution decided was non-negotiable: other people, present, known, staying. Here is what is quietly remarkable, though. Your body has not given up. Every time you feel that hollow pull in your chest when you are cut off from people, every time a party photo on your phone makes the room feel quieter, that is not your weakness announcing itself. That is your ancient alarm system still doing its job, still telling you what you need, still insisting, with the full authority of 2 million years of survival, that you were built for something more than this. The feeling is not the problem. The feeling is the message. The question is whether the world you live in will ever make it easy enough to listen. Tonight, when the room goes quiet and the phone is the only light, you might feel it again. That tightening, that hollow distance. And now you know, it is not you falling short of the modern world's standards. It is the modern world falling short of yours.